Okay, so let's check out weekly exercise 9. See what you're going to be doing for this assignment. Okay, now this one is a fairly straightforward exercise if you thoroughly read the setups, the actual results that are depicted here, and then deliberately answer these questions very specifically. Okay, so each of these paragraphs is reporting a different study. So there are 4 different studies reported here. And like I said here in number 1, all of them are correlational studies. What I first want you to do is to talk about the risks associated with drawing causal conclusions from correlations. Remember, we talked about that back in a previous chapter when I talked about correlations do not establish causation. I want you to remember what that was about, and then one by one apply that logic to each of the 4 studies that are reported here. So please do not give me one characterization and say, well, they all are suffering from whatever. I literally want to hear which variables could be construed incorrectly and like that. So legitimately talk about each study separately. I'm not saying you need a long report. I'm just saying I want you to specifically address each of the studies and what the risks are in each of those studies of assuming that there's some kind of, first off, this will force you to say what the causal conclusion would be and then why that would be faulty. For number 2, I want you to look at context effects. Okay, other factors besides what they're talking about that are present in the context as described. You don't have to do a bunch of guessing or stereotyping or thinking of, outside of these examples. I want you to think from the example. What else in the context might be accounting for the correlations? So what factors from the environment might have contributed to the behavior that's being described? So for each of the 4 studies, I want you to address that. In each of the 4 studies, the researchers were trying to find a single causation for a multiply caused effect. There's something in each of these 4 studies that makes it really clear that they really want to distill it down to one thing. And so for each of those 4 things, I want you to give me something that indicates that they're trying to really find one thing to blame. And then in the first example and in the 4th example, the researchers controlled for at least one other variable besides the one of interest. So identify the variable or the variables in each case that they attempted to control for that was not the variable of interest. And you can tell when something's been controlled for when they use phrases like even when variable was taken into consideration, or even when variable was held constant. So look for phrases like that, look for meaning like that to try and figure out what was controlled for in the first and the 4th example. Here's your rubric. This is what I'll be looking for. So make sure, see how I've got discuss the risks of causal conclusions times 3. I'm looking for you to address each of the experiments. Sorry, I should say times 4. I'm looking for the risk of causal conclusions. I'm looking for the environmental factors. I'm looking for the single causation in each example. So do not do a blanket statement. Address each one of them separately. Okay, that's the one trick in weekly exercise 9. Hopefully you'll be able to work your way through it. So good luck. Have fun with it.